Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by Robbie Diaz. How you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Enjoying this fall weather down here in Los Angeles, man. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm in Michigan. It still feels pretty good over here. For those of you that don't know much about Robbie, he works mainly as a producer, screenwriter, actor, and director. His films have won several horror awards, such as Best Director, Best Horror Film. I could go on and on with that. He works at the genre festivals, hit all the horror conventions, old screenings, and horror trivia, which is full of the industry people. He's worked with director of photography Dean Cundley from Halloween, Dave Sheridan, Felissa Rose, John Fury, Alan Maxon, Eileen Dietz, Larry Zerner, Deborah Voorhees, Vinny DeSanti, Tom Matthews, Mike Hurst, to name a few. All people that I look up to and respect so much. I'm so jealous. I've gotten to work with a couple of them myself. And you're right, man. When you meet these people, you think about the horror world and how scary and terrifying horror movies are. But these people are the kindest, sweetest, most genuine people you could ever hope to meet in your life. So what are some of the things that you've done that you could talk about with us?
In terms of, to touch on what you're saying, yeah, they're the most gentle people that I've ever met. And working in the industry, I work with a lot of people, a lot of genres. It's like anytime you get onto a film set, and someone's wearing a horror T-shirt, it's an instant bond right away. That's one of the things. I've gotten jobs because I was wearing a horror shirt, or I've hired somebody because it's like we just connected because they were wearing a Halloween shirt or whatnot. So it's a tight knit group. We're good to each other. I've never had an issue with anyone in the industry in terms of the horror genre. So. It's always a blast working with these people, and they are all great, every one of them.
I absolutely agree with you. And for those of you that want to keep up on what Robbie's doing, though, make sure I have all his links down here in the description. So make sure you're following him on social media so you can check out all the work that he's doing. So what are you working on right now that you got coming up?
Yeah, so right now I have 5 films screening at the famous Chinese theater. It's a part of the Silicon Beach Film Festival. 2 are features, 3 are shorts. They all got accepted. They're getting a lot of love. One of them I wrote. It's a horror comedy, How to Kill Your Roommates and Get Away with It. It's like an official guide, So we play with the horror comedy in that subgenre. Also produced a creature feature, which I got a small role in. We shot that in Washington. It's called The Ravening Woods. Look for that. And these will be streaming eventually once we get them out to the sales agents after the festival run.
Sure.
And then I co-wrote a zombie film. I was making it over quarantine, and I directed it. It's won several awards. I'll put the link up. It's on Vimeo. So that can be public now. Okay. So that. Arguably my best work as a director, so I'm really proud of that film. And then I produced another wild one. It's kind of an experience film, zany, alone in the dark style kind of type of film. Okay. And then I recorded sound on another one that's in the festival too. So a lot of successes there. I'm in collaboration with Full Moon's one of Full Moon's writers, and he's writing the script for me. So that'll be my feature film debut as a director. I got some ties there, and we're gonna make that puppy happen. Excited for that.
Congratulations, man. I work with Full Moon is awesome. Obviously, we all grew up Puppet Master fans, so yeah, that's really cool that you get to work with them. And like I said, guys, all this is coming through the pipeline. So all you got to do is click the links down here so you can listen to what he's doing by following him on social media. You don't have to wait on me to give you updates. And like he said, his zombie movie, what was the zombie movie called?
Oh, I'm sorry. Streets of the Dead. You got to have the word dead in there.
Of course. And Streets of the Dead, that link is also down here. So you can check that out as well, because I'll be checking that out tonight. You guys might as well check that out as well. So I'm very excited to see that. Now, Robbie, something that I want to talk about real quick. You have all these things that are going in the pipeline right now. And it's a lot of hard work, obviously, and it's something that you're very proud of. And what do you think it is about the horror genre that attracts you so much to want to keep pumping these things out?
Well, to be honest with you, it's a community, right? So, like I said, if you see the horror shirts, you gravitate to those people. But it's just the art of it. It's really, you know, you create these worlds and these crazy locations, and some of the scripts are zany, which we don't get to experience in real life as humans, you know, as civilians. And, you know, so we get to play these worlds, create these monsters or serial killers, and bring fear to people. And the idea is to always, you know, evoke that emotion. And so, you know, often when I screen a film, you know, I'll kind of watch a couple people just to see if things are hitting, scares or a joke or whatnot. But ultimately, it's the experience of making the movie and creating these worlds and atmospheres and how the music plays into it and creating the kills and the scares. I think, you know, there's nothing like it. I've done comedy, I've done drama, you know, and those lighting schemes are very simple, you know, and so it's the whole art of putting it all together in making horror films. I think that's just something we all have in common. And once you work with people that are horror people on the set, they just know instantly. It's like a second language. So it's beautiful. And again, you know, the horror stars from the past, the present, still working, not working. They're always willing to contribute, comment on media, be involved. You see them at the conventions, they're involved. And you know, the thing about the genre is, say, you know, you go to another country, you know, who has different cinema, you know, France, Burma, an Arabic country, something like that. They're always going to recognize the Michael Myers mask. They're always going to recognize the Jason mask, or something like that. You know, where it's, you know, you get a one-off comedy, and comedy's subjective in other places, you know, so people aren't going to see, you know, the Office logos, you know, things like that. So horror is really universal. And I, you know, you don't need Shakespeare writing. It's a great experience watching these movies, and independent horror is great.
Well, and the thing with independent horror is and I hate to say this the way that I'm going to say it, it thrived throughout the pandemic. Now, please, everybody that's listening, I'm not downplaying the pandemic. The pandemic is very serious. I've had COVID. My wife is a respiratory therapist. This is something that in the Sledge household take very, very seriously. But the indie horror, people were safe and they thrived. You know, that kept us entertained throughout the pandemic because of how hardworking that the indie horror community stayed. And I've become very close with a lot of directors and producers in indie horror, and safety was always first. Even though they wanted to keep creating their art, safety was always the number one priority, with the COVID test and wearing the masks and sanitizing on sets. And, you know, they had to cut out a lot of things that they used to do, but they did it because they wanted to keep you entertained. And they went the extra mile to keep us entertained through the streaming services. And all the indie horror people out there, I love you. You have my respect. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work you did throughout this pandemic, even through this scary time. And something I've said on this podcast before, and I'm sorry for repeat viewers, you were just talking about how universal horror is. And horror is so loved that we have conventions where we dress up as our favorites and we go there. You don't get rom-com con. You know, it's just something that doesn't happen. But that's how much we love horror. We'll spend the money to dress up like a Michael Myers or a Freddy Krueger or an Art the Clown and go and meet these people that mean so much to us, even though we've never met them in our lives. And we talked about Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund. He's a child killer, but he was so charismatic. He was giving awards away at Nickelodeon, you know, like, hey, kids, come get your award. You know, like, and that's how influential horror is. Yeah, even though he's a child killer, he's giving away awards at Nickelodeon and doing commercials for Pepsi and Doritos, you know, like, so it's amazing how tight-knit the horror community is.
Yeah, I mean, especially out here in LA where, you know, you could be I was just walking down the street the other day and I saw Caroline Williams, and I'm just like, hey, yeah, I hadn't worked with her, but I know people that have, and it's just like, wow, I mean, you turn the corner and they're there, and just normal people, to be honest with you, and they love what they do, and you know, they're very humbled by the fandom is what we call it,
right?
Over a lot of these years and films and times, and you know, they really appreciate everything that we as fans and filmmakers put into it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, often,
I think that,
yeah, go ahead.
I think that what that is that they know how hard it is to be in the horror community, and because if you look at people that are in the horror community, I think the reason we're so tight is because everybody else looks down on horror. You know, even if you look at award shows like the Oscars and stuff, everybody always looks down on horror. Like horror doesn't mean anything to anybody, when really it means more to us than it does, you know, than comedies do to people that love comedies. The only thing I can say that's close is like the people that get into like Star Wars, Star Trek, or superhero like Marvel movies. Those people are just as committed to their craft. But with horror, it's more of a lifestyle, you know. And I don't say we go out and kill people or anything, but when you meet someone that's into horror, like you said, you have that automatic connection. It's automatically, that's a cool person, and I want to get to know them right away.
Right. And you know, it's the shared experience, to be honest with you. It's like I've seen Halloween, I don't know how many times, I can count, but like, you know, we're going to screen all 5 of the films in like next week, you know, a bunch of friends, we're going to talk about it, and et cetera, et cetera. It's the total experience. And these films, you know, some of them age well, some of them don't, but it doesn't matter. They're so good, they're bad. I mean, there's so many in the 70s or early 80s where you're like, oh God, I could have probably made a better film, but it wouldn't have been successful because it wasn't as fun, man. You know, some of this stuff is, I mean, it's true art to me. I mean, Tom Savini stuff, Nicotero, all these guys, man. I mean, the work they put in. You see the bonus features on some of these DVDs, man, and it's like, whoa, that is art, if you ask me.
The practical effect game will never be outdone by CGI. Look, and again, I'm not shitting on CGI, because you can use CGI with practical effects and enhance your work and make it look very, very good. But like you said, the Nicoteros, the Savinis, those guys changed film forever. Whether anybody wants to admit it or not, they completely changed the outlay of film forever. And they have again, more love and respect, because without them, I probably wouldn't be the human being that I am right now. And I know that seems like a dramatic thing to say, but it's legit. Like, without these people in the horror world, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. So horror means that much to me. Now, Robbie, we know what you got going on in the future and what you're doing right now, my friend, but I want to take it back to the past. And I want to talk about how horror started for you. And I think people that are watching have already kind of gathered what your first horror movie was, but let's make it official, my friend. Your first horror movie was?
Well, it was Halloween. It was Halloween. Yeah, you know, as far as I can remember, my aunt used to babysit me, right? And the only movies that she would play was Halloween 1, 2, and 3, right? Mm-hmm. And the Elm Street 1 and 2. I remember those being on quite a bit also. But Halloween, I mean, the thing that stuck with that, so little, the thing that stuck with that was just that theme song. That song was freaky. And it took me, as I remember as a kid, it took me a while to kind of sit there and just like watch what was going on. I would see snippets here and there, you know, walking around, a little kid, you know. When I finally sat down and watched it, you know, God, I don't know, I must have been 7 or 6 or whatever. Maybe
right.
But I was tripped, like, is this real? Like, this is freaked me out. You know, I had nightmares, that white mask that you got in the background. I had nightmares of that mask, you know, every night till I was about, you know, 12 or 10 or something like that. You know, it always freaked me out.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think the thing with him is the shape can be anywhere, you know, right. And it, you know, like I said, he's outside the window. He's behind us right here. The shape can just show up and oh shit, he's right there.
What?
You know, like, and that's the thing about Michael Myers that I've talked about. Growing up, I wasn't a Halloween fan growing up. And to me, it was just like Michael Myers, I was more of a Jason Voorhees fan because I felt like the kills were more creative. Oh, yeah. But then as I got older, I came to really appreciate and respect Halloween because it's just a guy. This isn't a monster. This isn't, you know, it's a human being that could live right next door to you that just snapped and went crazy. And this movie is filled with so much influence. And I say that Psycho, Black Christmas, and Halloween are really the godfathers of the slasher genre. This is really, if we didn't have these three, slashers wouldn't exist. And there's so many scenes in this movie that we all are just so head over heels in love with. Which scene would you say affected you the most from Halloween 78?
It affected me is probably the scene where Jamie Lee is finding the dead bodies, you know, and she sees PJ's soul, you know, she sees her dead body and, you know, eyes wide open, and she kind of backs up into the corner, not knowing what to do, what the hell is going on, freaked out. And then Dean Cundy, the cinematography, kind of, you know, he dims the light and you slowly see the shape illuminating out of the darkness. And I remember I remember freaking out there and going like, no way, this guy could just appear like that. You know, I was a kid. And then, you know, the biggest fears was, he's in my closet. He can just appear like, magically, as a child. So that scene really resonated with me. It was artsy, but artsy enough where you can, you're scaring a kid, 7-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And the stab, and then the whole chase sequence, that whole final act, brilliant, with the score and Loomis coming in. And I mean, that whole sequence was great. And so anytime you got home invasion, I think that's a scary thing. That's a real thing. The guy next door stalking in the daytime. I mean, these are real horrors that can happen and probably have happened. So the whole stalker babysitter thing. That whole thing is freaky, and still is to me to this day.
I completely agree, because and especially I think at our age, I'm not trying to say anything about people that are younger than us. Please don't misconstrue what I'm about to say. But people that are our age, that grew up in our generation, we had those type of babysitters, and we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have, all this elaborate shit that we have now. Like, it literally was your corded phone. Like, I felt like a fucking millionaire when we got a cordless phone for the first time, man. Like, I felt like I was fucking living in a science fiction world. Like, it was the curly cord phone. We had the babysitters that would come over, and they would just, young girls that would get paid to come babysit, trying to make money for the weekends, and that's what we grew up with, And so, like, to me, that's where, as an older person, Halloween really starts to generate with me now, because you don't really get that much these days. Most of the time you're getting babysat by people that It wasn't just random places. Like at our grocery store in town, they would put up ads, and you would pull the tab and you would go call that babysitter, and they'd come and babysit you. You never met them before. You don't really get a lot of that now. So you can see where that affected you a lot more than what it probably does people that watch it today. I talk about that a lot. The horror when we were young is different. Like The Ring, for example. People today, kids, they don't watch VHS tapes. So The Ring doesn't scare them the way that The Ring scared people like you and I, because we grew up with that stuff. So I think that's where horror really can be subjective to different people, because of the times you grew up in as well, and the experiences that you had growing up.
Absolutely. I mean, just the desensitizing alone, just scaring the audience is a hard thing to do in general. But back then, I mean, when those 80s movies were coming out, it looked so real, felt very real, like a Maniac, or things like that. It just felt so damn real, and these effects that we hadn't seen before. I'd always tell my friends, like, hey man, what if we saw The Exorcist? What if we were around during that time and we went to the theater and saw that? Because I had a friend and we were talking about it the other day, and he's like, yeah, Exorcist is whatever. I'm like, yeah, but imagine 1973, or imagine Jaws, going to theater and what it did to the beaches. The beach goers must have freaked out. So just the impact on your film goers and what that does. But nowadays, I mean, you can Google anything. You can see, I mean, God knows, what's out there, what we can see just by clicking a button or two or Googling dark web.
You just brought up an amazing point too. Like, for us to go back in time and watch The Exorcist, like I've always said, and I'll continue to maintain this till the day I die, The Exorcist is the scariest movie ever made. It may not be my favorite horror movie, but for me, it definitely scared me the most. I mean, it was to the point where women were running out of the theater crying, and men were calling their churches to see if they could have special meetings with the pastor. Like, could you imagine a movie having that impact today?
No, I actually can't.
Right.
I thought trying to make, and it's like, dude, you try, even The Omen. I just saw The Omen the other day for the first time in a while, and I was like, God damn, man, the kills, the freakiness of this kid. But nowadays, it's so hard to freak people out because of, the World Wide Web, So
and that's it. The last movie I think that really had that impact on people was the Blair Witch Project, because people didn't have Google in their pockets at that time. And the internet it was still in its infancy at that time. And, I remember leaving that theater like, is that real? Did that shit really happen? Why would they show that? And I remember being a 13-year-old punk rock kid at Sarah Tuckerman's house, smoking a cigarette outside, like, that shit's real, man. My cousin knew Heather Donahue. She's missing, bro. They never found her. Shit's real. You know what I mean? Like, making shit up. And I'm sorry, Sarah, and everybody that was there. I'm a total asshole. I didn't really know those people. But, that's what you did when you were young. I just made shit up. And it saddens me almost that nobody could have that type of experience anymore, because everything is so spoiled by the internet.
Yeah. I mean, I remember those days. I remember 99 when that came out. We thought it was real too. I mean, everybody I knew thought it was real. go to school and be like, hey, did your mom let you? You know, it's like, yeah, dude, I don't want to see it, but I did see it, and like, oh man, can this happen? Where's Marilyn? You know, we were freaked out. So
yeah, man,
I mean, it's the impact, man. It's the impact. And that's why we do these movies. And God, I wish I was making movies back then. I'll tell you what, I just, if I can go back in time to do one thing, it would be probably the 80s. You know, that whole 9 years, 10 years, and just be on those sets. That would.
For me, it would be like 78 to 89. Like I'd have to get a little bit of the end of the 70s, right into 89. Prime time, man. Totally agree with you. But I want to bounce back to Halloween 78 for a second. We talked about which scene affected you the most, but now I want to know, what is your favorite scene from Halloween 78?
Boy, that's tough. Favorite scene, I would have to say, God, that moment when he pops out and gets Bob and hangs him, that had a different kind of impact on me as well. You know, that moment, because when you first watch it, you're kind of waiting for the scare, right? But just the sheer strength of the guy to pick him up and hang him with a knife on the wall. I mean, you really think about that, and that's impressive, right? This guy, this dude is, what is he, a WWE guy? You know, this guy is strong as fuck. So, that sheer strength alone, I mean, that's like a whoa scene for me. And it's simple, no blood. You see that you got the shot of the feet going up, his death, he's dying, and then the sequence right after that, I guess that's kind of the same scene where he puts the sheet on, he's got the glass. I know that was really cool too. So those are probably my favorite.
And I think what's iconic about this too is this is when you get the first ever Myers head tilt. That becomes so synonymous throughout the rest of the franchise. Michael Myers becomes synonymous with stabbing, the head tilt, and then that Undertaker sit up. Three things that I think of when I think of Michael Myers.
That was that was freaky, and just the sheer art of it. They didn't need blood, they didn't need anything. I mean, it scared.
Yeah,
but that was probably my favorite scene. I love all of Loomis's stuff. Obviously, Donald Pleasance was great in the movie. So I mean, it's a well put together movie. Overall, I mean, with the score, the lighting, just the mood, the pacing of it. I don't mind the slow burn at first. Everything about it to me is perfection. For a slasher horror film.
It really is. I mean, it starts with a little boy killing his sister, which is kind of what is bringing me into my next question. We talked about what your favorite scene was, but as horror fans, we love the kills. It's something that we dig. It's super awesome. The more, the better for us. But what would you say your favorite kill from 78 is?
From 78, it is Bob's kill. That just, again, I just touched on it. It's the sheer strength, the scare of him jumping out, the head tilt, the darkness, teenage boy, he just picks up like nothing, and it was just it was a scary scene, man. So that's my favorite in the franchise. If I can elaborate the franchise, because there's this one that it's brutal. It's from part 6, the theatrical cut, where he puts Jamie Lloyd as an adult and puts her on that grinder and turns it on, and she just oh man. And I know Daniel, I know the guy that wrote it, and I never spoke about it, but that's brutal. That's probably my favorite kill.
See, and it's funny because we just did our top 10 Halloween kills. You guys can check it out in honor of Halloween kills coming up. But one that really stuck with me, and even though I'm not a fan of the film at all, but in Halloween Resurrection, when the kid gets killed with that tripod through his neck, I love that kill, man. I don't know what it is about that kill, but that kill just it's always gotten me, man.
Yeah, that's a homage kill, I think, to Peeping Tom. I think they got that from Peeping Tom. I think that's the kill. Yeah. If you ever see Peeping Tom, if you haven't seen Peeping Tom, check it out. I do believe on the BTS footage, they were saying that's where they got the kill from, or maybe it was a coincidence. I don't remember. But yeah, that's a brutal kill because you got that POV. It was freaky.
Yeah, I dig it, man. So we talked about Halloween 1978. That was your first horror movie. That was your introduction into horror. But now, my friend, I got to go scream on you for a second. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Yeah, well, it is Halloween. It's Halloween. And Nightmare on Elm Street is probably my second, and then Jaws. Those are probably the three that I can watch anytime. Trapped on an Island. Those are favorites. But yeah, I mean, Halloween, just a masterpiece. I mean, as a filmmaker myself, you know, in the genre, I see it for more than just entertainment value. I see it for the simplicity of filmmaking, you know, and what you can do with a budget like that, and you know, what it did to the genre. To be honest with you, so all that appreciation for the movie and that score, man, is you know, brilliant. It's etched in time.
Well, and you just talked about Jaws as well. And that's another thing I've talked about on here a lot. Halloween, Jaws, Psycho. If you've never seen those movies, you still know the score. That's how iconic and influential the scores for those three movies are. You could have never seen these movies, but the minute you hear that piano lick or you hear that cello, you know what time it is. You know shit's going down like the second you hear it.
Yeah, that's the fun of it, man.
100%. And I wish I could play them on here, but YouTube will demonetize me and block the video, guys. But you know what songs we're talking about. So, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on here, Robbie. We always end this with the same question. We're going to go back to Halloween 1978. And I'm telling you guys right now, I know the answer, but I got to ask the question because it's what I do. We're going to be ranking this movie on a skull count. 0 skulls being the worst and 5 being the best. Now, what we're doing here, we're not ranking it on production, score, cinematography, nothing like that. We're not being critics. We're ranking this movie strictly on how it affected you on first viewing. So would it be such an influence in your life? Like I said, I think I know the answer, but what would you rank Halloween 1978, 0 to 5 skulls?
That's a 5 sculler for me, man. You know, I have, so when I do my movies, and I'm sure you'll see a lot of tips of the cap to Halloween in them. So it impacted me in many ways. It got me into the genre for the most part, you know, fell in love with it.
See, that's what I love. I love to hear that. This movie carried so much weight with you. And that's why I like to do this about our first horror movie, because a lot of people I know, this movie, whether it be Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Jaws, whatever your first horror movie was, it usually sets people in motion on what they're going to follow in their horror life. A lot of people that watch slashers for the first time, they love slasher films. I know a lot of people that The Exorcist was their first horror movie and they love religious horror. Like there's just I think that first horror movie really resonates with us because we're chasing the dragon after that. You get that first high and then you're always chasing that dragon, trying to get that high again. So I love the fact that Halloween is such an influential film in the genre. And without it, who knows what horror would be today?
Yeah.
You know, like Halloween set the precedent. Like I said, it built on what Psycho and Black Christmas did. And it became the icon in horror. To me, my big three have always been Michael, Jason, Freddy. But that was the holy trinity of horror for me. And what would horror be without Michael? Because you wouldn't have Jason without Michael. I mean, Victor Miller straight up said when he made Friday the 13th, which was Mrs. Voorhees, he copied a lot of what Halloween did.
I mean, all of those movies from like 78 to most of the horror movies from 78 to I think 84, you know, they were all derived from Halloween. You know, I mean, we wouldn't have gotten the Jason story in that franchise without Michael Myers, you know? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, that impact alone, man, you know, it set off The Burning, all these knockoffs, good or bad, you know, it set off all those films and that's a huge impact, man, because all those people made, not all of them, but I mean, there was a lot of money we had, you know, a lot of money was made, a lot of jobs. I mean, you look at it on a bigger scale, I mean, wow. I mean, it's still making money. I still buy merchandise today. I still buy any DVD that comes out just because I want to see the newest version or hear the newest track or whatnot, you know?
Yep. Well, we got Halloween Kills coming out. You know, we're all going to be going to see that. I'll be there opening night. I know that it's available on Peacock. And if you guys want to stay home and watch it, good for you. That's awesome. Keep yourself safe. If you are going to go out and watch it, good for you. Keep yourself safe. Make sure you're vaccinated, mask up. I don't want to get political here. Please don't unsubscribe or stop watching because I believe in a vaccine. My wife's a respiratory therapist, guys. I go with what my wife says. She means the world to me. And she told me to get the vaccine. That's what I did. Thankfully, after that, I got COVID, and it didn't hit me as hard because I was protected. So I don't want to get political here, but just please be safe for you and the people that are around you. Wear a mask, enjoy the film, and let us know what you think of it. Robbie, man, this has been so great. Don't go anywhere, man. I got a couple more questions for you.
Thanks.
Everybody else, as I said at the beginning, and I'm going to say it again, links in the description. Make sure you're checking out the film. Make sure you're following him on social media so you can keep updated on what he's doing. You don't got to wait for me to give you the updates. You can get them yourself. So as always, guys, keep talking horror. Stay what you are. And we'll see you guys soon.